There's one Chinese saying that folks have been repeating for hundreds of years. Six words. Every emperor had it. No one of them could ever solve it. Let's break it down.
In ancient China, there was a saying that lasted for centuries. The sky is high, and the emperor is far away. The literal meaning is simple. The sky is high, the emperor is far away. So why did 6 words this simple survive for hundreds of years? Because they were never really about distance. They were a wry folk expression about the system itself, comparing imperial power to the sky, grand and lofty in appearance, yet hopelessly remote from ordinary people. It was not disrespect toward the emperor. It pointed to a deeper question. How did an empire that pushed centralization to its absolute limit produce exactly this kind of folk consensus? Starting from the Qin dynasty, China built one of the most sophisticated, centralized systems in human history. Unified writing, unified weights and measures, unified law, they all supported by county administration, household registration, and a bureaucratic apparatus. In theory, every person fell under the emperor's jurisdiction. But one number reveals the reality. The entire empire's formal officials numbered, for most of its history, only 20 to 30,000, governing tens of millions, sometimes hundreds of millions, spread across more than 1,000 counties. In an average county, one magistrate oversaw tens of thousands to over 100,000 people, with only a few dozen staff under him. A magistrate setting out from the capital on horseback could take 1 to 2 months just to reach his post. When he arrived, he found himself in a world entirely foreign. He did not know the locals, could not understand the dialect, and had no idea who actually held influence. He was the highest representative of imperial power in name, but could accomplish nothing unless he relied on a group of people called clerks and runners. Clerks were not officials. They held no rank and received no formal salary, yet they handled every practical matter at the grassroots level of the empire. They were locals, entrenched for generations, familiar with everything. When the emperor's orders reached their hands, those orders were interpreted, bent, and selectively enforced. The farther from the capital, the more power was diluted. By the farthest reaches of the empire, the court's authority was often nothing more than a name. For the ordinary people living at those far edges, this was not an abstract political concept. It was daily life. Clerks and local strongmen became the real power on the ground, exploiting the gap between what the court could see and what actually happened. When common people were bullied or cheated, where could they turn? The magistrate had likely already formed an understanding with the clerks. Filing a complaint above the county level was ruinously expensive. The emperor was far away in the capital, and the chance of a grievance reaching his ears was almost zero. This saying captured 2 truths at once. Power could not reach the ground, and the people could not reach power.
So, was anyone actually trying to fix this? 2 emperors tried. So, what happened?
Not everyone accepted this as inevitable. Zhu Yuanzhang of the Ming dynasty came from the very bottom of society. He had seen firsthand how clerks and local strongmen crushed ordinary people. He used the harshest methods imaginable. Steal 60 taels of silver, and you die. He even allowed ordinary citizens to seize corrupt clerks and deliver them straight to the capital. Over 30 years, vast numbers of officials were executed. But one batch was eliminated, and the next arrived almost immediately, operating in exactly the same way. The empire was simply too vast, and there was only one emperor. The Qing dynasty's Yongzheng emperor tried a different approach. He created the palace memorial system, letting designated officials bypass every intermediate level and report secretly to the emperor. He also reformed local finances, converting gray income into formal revenue, to shrink the space for unofficial dealings. For 13 years, it worked. But this system ran not on institutional strength, but on Yongzheng himself. He reviewed memorials until the early hours of the morning, personally overseeing every detail, using one man's energy to hold together an empire's worth of oversight. The moment he died, no one could sustain that workload, and everything quickly reverted to the way it had been. Under the imperial system, one man's willpower against an empire-sized problem was never going to last.
Two emperors, two completely different approaches, same ending. The question is why?
Zhu Yuanzhang used fear. Yongzheng used diligence, but both were ultimately one person fighting a structural problem. The empire needed to govern an enormous territory with limited resources. There were never enough officials, the treasury could never fund a large enough administration, and ancient transportation and communication were painfully slow. The empire had no choice but to rely on informal local agents to fill the gap. You could eliminate any individual, but you could not eliminate the need itself. Power can be centralized in one pair of hands, but execution is always scattered across millions. When a system demands uniformity at the top, but depends on unsupervised individuals at the bottom, the gap between the two is inevitable. That gap is where grievances went unheard. That gap is why the sky is high and the emperor is far away, endured for centuries. Faced with the same challenge, different civilizations chose different paths. Some reduced their scale, others distributed power. This is not a question of which was better, but of different choices under different conditions. China chose centralization. It brought unity and order. The price was a permanent gray zone between the throne and the ground. When people said, "The sky is high and the emperor is far away," they were not rebelling nor celebrating. They were voicing a helplessness that ran bone deep for centuries in an empire large enough. The reach that power claims will always exceed the reach it actually achieves. And those who suffered injustice found that justice was just as far away as the emperor himself. These 6 characters are not about any single dynasty. They are a reminder about all centralized power. No matter how complete the design at the top, what truly decides the fate of ordinary people is always the reality of the last mile. And that last mile forever belongs to the people farthest from the sky.